Now on the phone, Saskatchewan Rush play-by-play man, captain of the lacrosse debate team, and donut connoisseur Cody Janzen joins the pod to help break down divisional final weekend. Janner, what's new, brother?
Oh, man, I can't wait to just crush a 4-pack of donuts this weekend and watch some lacrosse. I'm ready for it. So, hey, no, things have been good, Mo. Good to talk to you again, and glad everything's going good with the Junior B spot.
That's wicked, because I think of two things when I think of you, Cody. I think of calling Rebels lacrosse in particular, lacrosse in general, but especially the Rebels, and those donut packs that you post on Twitter. That's a pretty consistent trait of yours. So I thought I should acknowledge what one of those defining traits of yours. I think it's something that is unique. I know that right before you do games on that morning, you'd often post a 6-pack of them, and it's something that I always think of when I think about you. So
I'm not sure anyone has eaten more variety of Italian Center donuts in Sherwood Park than this guy. So, again, it's a specialty, but I run on sugar, and I think most broadcasters do.
No, and nobody would ever look at you. I mean, it's not like you're a big guy. So you got the ability to inhale those things. By all means, you should go for it. So I love it.
I have to work out, or I can't fit on the headset there. Sit in the chair, I'll be in trouble.
All right, man. Well, let's get into it. So I want to start off by asking you if you've gotten anybody hooked on CROW LAX TV out on the prairies yet, and if you expect Prince Albert to join the party next year and create a 4-team division out in the East.
Oh, man. See, that's it's a loaded question. Hey, let's just stick with CROW LAX TV. Everyone's watching it. Come on. There's no one else putting out the amount of content that you guys are. So, like, players, coaches, fans, everyone, it's funny how big the notoriety's gotten. I think it's super cool because it means, you guys are doing a service that people care about, and you're doing it well. And that's the biggest thing, is that people do know who CROW LAX TV is, and you guys are providing more content than anyone else. As for Sask, I don't know. I could see it. Like, man, PA is right up there with, they beat the SWAT Tier 1 team. They gave Regina a run for their money. I was at that game, too, where Regina kind of blew them out. They played awful. Like, they weren't there. For them, and again, this is a hot take. The Rocky Mountain Lacrosse League people are going to hate me for this, but, like, I don't see it being beneficial to Junior B in Saskatchewan, to have teams playing in Alberta. I just don't. I think that essentially it makes teams in Saskatchewan worse, because I would love to see how good Swift Current, Prince Albert, those teams were if they played the Tier 1 talent on a weekend basis in Saskatchewan. Or if, going to be crazy, hey, imagine if Saskatchewan didn't have a Junior A or a Tier 1 team, and you kept all of that talent in province, and now they're playing against each other. And I call it the stew effect, right? What if you throw everything in the pot and you let it stew and it gets better, right? Like, I really think that Saskatchewan needs to focus on growing in the province, instead of just trying to take bits and pieces out and pretending that, if we put together an all-star team, we can compete here and do that. Like, that doesn't grow the game. Mo, you know that. It's time that I think they be a little bit selfish and figure out how to actually focus on taking this thing to the next level.
Yeah, I think those are good points, and I know we've talked about it in the past, actually pretty recently. I mean, when you throw in the Junior A program, it doesn't feel like there's a direction. It feels like they're trying to go about 18 different, down 18 different avenues at one time, and they're getting lost. And I think that with the Junior A team, it's just sucking too much talent away, and then they're going and doing things like trading their 2 best players, right before the season starts, and it's very confusing. You're trying to figure out what they're trying to accomplish. And I think that their B program has suffered quite a bit. And I think that you're right. If they pooled all their players together and competed and tried to do something at a Founders and try to grow that way, I think that would be probably the best way to attack it. So I would like to see.
You had me until the Founders, Mo, and now we got it going. Now you got Jana riled up here. Okay, number one, the trades, it makes sense. And again, I've talked with Dylan Shand enough, and again, I think we've seen differences on things, and I think we see eye to eye on a few things too. And it's kind of the whole, if you want to be here, great. If not, hey, I don't have an issue with trying to actually help out guys. And I think that direction from the SWAT has been better than holding guys hostage, and you know, I think we know about that in lacrosse, right? It's like, hey, teams want to make some money off of players, whatever, totally different conversation. As for going to the Founders, we are so ass backwards on that. It is costing teams way too much money for what they're actually getting, in my opinion. And again, I think it could be done differently. I think for some provinces and some teams, it is perfect. It is the awesome pinnacle of competition in Junior B. If your province isn't competitive to begin with, what are you doing spending 40, 50 grand sending a team out there? Invest in the kids, invest in the programs, invest in the community lacrosse, and actually use that money towards growing the game. That's where I think things have gone off the rails, is that it's about being like, oh, my kid was at the Founders Cup, or, oh, we sent a team to the Founders Cup or the Minto Cup. Who cares? I don't really give a shit about those trophies, and I get there's nostalgia there, but, like, let's actually focus on growing the game. That should be priority.
I think, you know what, I mean, I guess when I say go to the Founders, it's more of a way for me to express being competitive or getting better, I guess. Because, I mean, whether or not, right, if you're a team in Saskatchewan and you don't feel like you are at that level and you would rather spend the money elsewhere and try to grow your program, by all means, I get that. I think just for me and the way that, like, the way that I've sort of was brought up and been around lacrosse, those national championships do mean a lot. So I think that's just my way of saying trying to raise your game, trying to be better. But if you're the Regina Kings and you don't feel like it's worth your 40 grand, I'm not saying that that's the case this year, but just let's say last year, and they decide, hey, you know what, we'd rather spend this money elsewhere, I think that's perfectly fine. But yeah, I do think that Saskatchewan in general needs to sort of pick a plan of attack and go at it that way, because I just feel like they're sort of spread out, and all their resources are spread out, and they're running too thin.
Healthy debate. I appreciate it. I like it.
All right, so now let's sort of shift gears a little bit, and I want to ask you what you think you would suggest as your single best idea as to what could be done to get more people in the stands at these games and how to crank up interest level in the lacrosse community and outside of it.
Well, you know my first two, because we are right down the center on this one, and it's better scheduling and start times. I think that's just an absolute no-brainer. Like, run it like a legit organization, and people will treat you like that. You know, if you run it like a U13 house league, people are also going to treat you like that, and your parents are going to be the only ones showing up if they show up. But if you actually run it like a business, and I think junior hockey has really taken that route, where especially if you're in a major center, you have to do a little bit more marketing-wise, and you have to actually invest in some of those things, whether that's social media, whether that's finding someone to professionally market your team. You got to start investing in that stuff. I think that is so key. You see it in certain leagues that are succeeding, because if you don't put butts in seats and sell sponsors, again, it's never going to be a business. So put together actual business models. I think that's the biggest thing, right? Instead of just charging kids team fees and continuing to up it because parents will pay it, which they will. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. But I'm saying I think if you want the game to actually grow, you got to do a better job of running it like a business. Compare it to like the AJHL of hockey and how the Sherwood Park Crusaders and the Spruce Grove Saints run their operation compared to Junior B, like the St. Albert, I totally forget their name, or the Fort Saskatchewan Hawks, right? Like, they're Junior B, they're community run, it's fun, people will show up here and there, but like, it's not a business. So actually putting a business model on there, they just got to set the standards higher, right? And if you do that, people will come. Make sure you got warm-up music. Make sure you got things going on. Make sure you're slinging beers. Make sure you got food for fans. Like, do those little things, and people are really going to appreciate that. If people just show up and it's just a weird community junior lacrosse team, like, you're just going to get the same current crowd, and you're going to get a lot less young people.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think getting major sponsors, I think, is a really big step. I think doing things with the minor lacrosse community in partnership with them, I think is a big step. I know, like, teams will here and there, like the minors have done it a little bit with teams where they'll invite them to the game. They'll have them come on the floor, before the game and fist bump the guys as they come out. Those things I think all make a difference. I just think that they're just too few and far between. And I also think that perhaps having like a night, like every team has their own night where they host games. So, like, I don't know, the Warriors play every Friday night, or the Rebels play every Saturday night, or the CROW play every Wednesday night. Whatever it is, you can sort of promote it much easier to your local community, I think. And make it an event every time, every home game. You've got something else going on to try and draw people in, and then that way you can just sort of build from there. And then you have a base, and once you have your base of 200 people, everything else is a bonus, and suddenly your building is a lot closer to full than what it is now. So I think I think that having some structure with that can go a long way, because I know this year, Cody, it's just been dead. I mean,
it has. No, I was at the game too, and I thought it was a half decent crowd, and people were like, well, it was one of our best of the year, right? And I think that's changed so much, because we saw the days when the JRC was just filled to the brim. Kids were hanging off of the glass. Like, it was so built different. And again, I think they did a lot of good things connecting with the community, offering different options, putting, groups in the booth and bringing people out. Like, that's awesome. But the things have changed. Things aren't going to be the same as 6 years ago. Like, and this is my issue with, I guess, more so league, organization, association-wise, is like, how don't they have a director of sales within the RMLL or the ALA? Like, what is going on? What is stopping someone? And maybe it's because they don't run it like a business, and it's more so like a charity to some extent. It is like, have all the teams, all the junior teams in the province and senior teams, whatever, chip in a couple of grand, hire a professional salesperson for $80,000 a year plus commission, and get them selling shit. Like, you actually got to start running this like a business. And that's where I said it before, is that I think if a private entity came in and properly ran it, that would be a big issue for certain lacrosse teams, because they don't want to do that right now. It's the same thing with marketing and finding someone to sling tickets and get groups, right? If a team wanted to invest in it, they would run everyone out of the building. But as of right now, it's not exactly prioritized, because there's other things that they want to accomplish, which is fine. But it's just like the broadcast. If you invest in it, it's going to grow into something sustainable, feasible, and profitable, right? But if you don't want to invest in it, well, then I guess then that's why we're at where we're at.
Yeah, and before we move on here, I think step one in all of this, even if you're a team or you're in a situation where you don't want to invest in all of that right now, I think step one is getting rid of these like noon games and 12:30, and I know you touched on that off the top. I mean, that's just something that I think is easily done, and I don't know how we're in 2024 and still talking about this, but we are, so. That is.
Yeah, again, you just never see a properly run team or league doing that, right?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, if that means you got to cut down the number of games, I don't care. Play proper games. Have these teams actually make money off their home games, and that's how things will move forward. But
I keep saying that, but I don't know. I keep getting pushed back, so I guess we'll see what happens with that. But now let's go over and talk a little bit of future draft, and I want to ask you, because you obviously spend a lot of time covering and following the NLL, is there a guy currently in the Alberta Junior B Loop, RMLL, so it can be somebody in Manitoba or Saskatchewan, that you could see getting drafted in within the next few years?
Oh man. Okay, next few years, that's a totally different one versus like guys who I'd say like currently are like cusp or bubble guys, because I think there's some wicked 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds flying around tier 1. So I'll leave those kids out of those guys out of the picture here just for sake of being. I think we all know like Josh Fodchuk might have the highest ceiling of anyone just because of his natural talent, the way he thinks the game. Obviously, I think he gets bigger, stronger, faster. The potential there is like, you know, I kind of get visions, and you remember watching Ethan Forgrave during it was the COVID year or the year before COVID where the Miners went undefeated, and like Forgrave was just stinging corners and just putting guys in blenders. Like when Fodchuk's at his best, that's kind of how I see that. Isaac Tisdale at Red Deer. I mean, this guy, he might be one of the most well-rounded players in the league. I think that he's freaking really good. Miller Scrimshaw, you see him in Fort Sask. Like, imagine if he would, you know, take the summer and train like a guy like Eric Turner. You know, I really think you could see someone like him. He's got all the pieces, all the dynamic of being, you know, a cusp NLL guy or a bottom end guy, possible draft pick in a late round, something like that. Carson Wells, goalie's got all the fundamentals, needs some work. Gotta get a goalie coach working with him, but like, man, moves like butter, just side to side, got the size, like it's, you know, he can throw the ball. There's so much talent there. The South is a little bit tougher. I've always been a fan of Blake Claysinger's game. Like, I really think that he almost reminds me, and it's a bad NLL comparable, but Dan Taylor, right? Like, just moves bodies, guy's a brick shithouse, can just rip the ball, does all the greasy things, doesn't have to be fancy with it. Like, players like that can move on. You don't always have to be the high-scoring guy. It's not always the guy with the most points that moves up. Sometimes you got to do the little intangibles. So I would say those are the guys who, at least off the top of my head, I like their game. And I'd say, like, all of them could have a chance if, you know, they truly want it. I guess that's the biggest if.
Yeah, especially in this sport, because there's so many guys that after junior lacrosse, for different reasons. It's not always this, you know, because they're burnt out or hurt, or there's a lot of different reasons why. But things change, and you know, after junior lacrosse, it sort of feels for a lot of guys. I know I went through this myself. It feels like a letdown. And
well, here's the thing: is there's no great option, right?
No.
Like credit to the Miners. They run a heck of a senior team. Like that's run better than most senior A teams. Let's be realistic here. The Rebels have an awesome senior team that is a great group of guys. I guess they're super close knit, right? Like that's the pinnacle of senior being. Like those guys are having fun weekend in, weekend out. And Beaumont's a bit of a mix of both. They got some high end talent, and then they got some guys who are just the weekend warriors out there to have some fun. But like, there's no legitimate option. If you're not going to make the NLL, you're kind of grinding it out playing senior over summer, which is a different time than the NLL, so it feels like winter's a huge letdown. You don't just want to do those 4-on-4 winter runs where like you're playing against just a Heinz 57 random mixed, or you got to move out to Ontario or BC to play in the Arena Lacrosse League and pay to play there. Like, the lacrosse world's just let down guys, right? And so that's where change is needed, and that's where change can happen to give more options for these players, right?
Yeah, no, and you know what, the Alberta programs are better, I would say, now than they were 10 years ago in terms of giving guys opportunities, young players to play and things like that. And then when you compare it to other provinces, you know, Alberta Senior B has always been quite good. But yeah, just in general, like after junior, it does feel like I would say you have to really love to play to continue on, because it can feel almost like you're hitting a dead end in some ways. And so I hope that a lot of these guys do get those opportunities, and I think that's a great call out on Kleisinger. I really truly think he's the best Shamrock, and I think that if they're gonna go where they want to go this year, he's going to go off in these playoffs, and if they make it to the provincials there as well. So I want to ask you now, what was your single biggest surprise in Junior B in 2024?
easiest question you've asked all day. It's Red Deer missing the playoffs. Like, what? Come on.
Good call.
It doesn't make sense, and they just found ways to piss away games and lose games, and they've got such a crazy good roster on paper. Some of it just doesn't make sense, but that's also sports. That's what we love about it, is it's not predictable. So Red Deer, surprise, shock, whatever you want to call it, I can't wrap my head around it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. When I asked this, I was like, I wonder what he's going to say, but now that you say that, I totally agree. I couldn't have said that better. I think they got bit also by what was a very competitive division, and anytime you go 1-7 or 1-8, right? 1-7, 1-8 down the stretch, I think it sort of they sort of lost their mojo a little bit, so to speak, and it was tough to get back with the schedule that they were playing. They had the Shamrocks, the Silvertips twice. They were going through a lot there, but yeah, no, somebody had to miss, and I guess in the end it ended up being the guys from the Deer. So, all right, before we get your analysis on each round 2 matchup, give me an MVP from each of the 4 divisions, and maybe a quick reason why, and then give your league MVP from those 4.
Okay, we'll start with the North. That's where you are. You get it. It's Josh Fonta, right? I think he instantly made the Warriors the league favorites again. He's just that good of a difference maker. Central, Caden McDonough. You can't win without goaltending, especially not in Junior B. And then he's the reason the Silvertips are, the top team in the Central, got that first round bye, and they're going to be a problem come Larry Bishop time. South, we're both high on Kissinger for sure, but Zane Fletcher, nasty season. Outscored his teammates by 30 points. That's on the best team in the league. That's crazy. East, Ryan McDonald. I like Jackson Lenz out of Regina too. He's a heck of a player, but McDonald with almost 70 goals in a season, that's crazy. But yeah, I think if I had to pick a league MVP, I think just strictly based on, it almost feels like the Nikita Kucherov effect in the NHL, but just Zane Fletcher, what he did offensively on the Shamrocks compared to his peers and teammates, that's silly. That's stupid. He's got to be the league MVP, right?
Yeah, you know what? The thing that I appreciate about him is he's got a little bit of Luke Royer in him, that he does so much off the ball. He's always putting himself in position to be dangerous on the floor, and he'll also open up space too for other guys. He's not afraid to go and set picks and seal down and get dirty. So you know what? I have no issues at all. I think you nailed all 4 of those picks, and I had no issue with going with Fletcher as the league MVP. I think there's a lot of offense in the league, so there's a lot of competition for it. But yeah, no, I think that you can't go wrong going with Fletcher. So now let's transition into series predictions, and I'll tee up each one with a little primer. I'll just give you what the season series was, and then you can just go and give everybody what you think's going to happen and how many games and why, and then we'll just jump to the next series. So let's start with Blizzard Kings. Team split the season series 2-2. The best of 3 starts Saturday morning, bright and early in Regina.
You know how I feel about morning games. We're not going to talk about that. Yeah. We're going to talk about the Blizz, and they're winning in 3. I think the Blizz. So my biggest thing, though, is the Kings have already punched their ticket to the Founders.
Yeah, they should have, yeah.
So they have, but that's why I'm going Blizz in 3. I just think that the Blizz have a little bit more to play for, and so I get it. I think the Blizz are automatically in the Founders too. I don't know how all that stuff works. I'll never wrap my head around it, but just give me the Blizz in 3.
So did the Kings beat Prince Albert in that mini series to go to the Founders? Because I know that they were kind of
So they did, but I don't know, the whole story with it too, and hey, we don't want to be the TMZ of lacrosse here, but I don't know, they were changing up some stuff on them, and it sounds like PA might have got the short end of the stick on a couple of things, and so I don't know, it's greasy, but hey, whatever, it is what it is. I do think Regina was the better team, but I also think it was a little bit weird on how some of the things were changing.
Okay, so now you got my curiosity piqued. Did they sort of play both games in Regina or something, or what was going on? What kind of was screwed up on in the sense of Prince Albert?
And see, like I can't dive into it because I don't fully know all the stories. I hear like little bits and pieces and stuff. I think it's something more so to do with scheduling. One game was in PA, which Regina won in overtime, and the game 2 was in Regina, which I think the Kings won by 8 or 10. Like they hammered them. It was a 1:00 start Saturday afternoon. Looked like PA had bus legs. Like they just looked terrible off the jump. So. Again, it was just a bit of some weird scheduling. I don't know the full story. Someone else can tell us if they've got it.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so let's go down south now. And Mountaineers Shamrocks. Shamrocks sweep the season series 4-0, although the last 2 meetings were quite close, 9-7 and 11-7, so combined 6 goals spread there. And this series, I think it's important to note, all 3 games being played in Stupid Park in Calgary. What do you got here, Cody?
See, I'm not sure home floor advantage plays that much, and like, no offense to the Shamrocks or the Mounties, but like, you know, I don't think home floor advantage or like the crowd advantage is gonna like go crazy. They're both Calgary teams playing the friggin' Stupid Park. But I think the Mounties are gonna punch. I just don't think they can knock out the big dog. I think maybe the Mounties even win game 1 because they're buzzing off of a high. But I'll take the Shamrocks in 3.
All right, interesting. I like the guts to take the Mountaineers in a game. I know Keenan and I recorded the main section already, and I said that I think one of these games is going to be super close, but I ultimately had to go 2-0. But I like the call there on 2-1. I hope that's the case because that'll make for some really entertaining lacrosse for those guys down south. Let's go
what a
over.
Good coaching matchup too.
Yeah.
I know we've talked about it before. You know, Zippy and Crook, I love it. There's a bit of a chess match going on here. You know, those 2 guys give a shit about their teams, and I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, I know I said this already on that portion, but yeah, it's one of the better coaching matchups you'll get, and it's 2 of the more disciplined teams in the league.
Yeah.
So you should see pretty fast lacrosse. I don't think you're going to see guys getting dirty too often on the extracurriculars. It'll be intense, but it'll be clean, and I think that bodes well for the pace and sort of the skill level of the series. So now let's go over to the Central. Mavericks, Silvertips. Silvertips win the season series 2-1, and I know I said this personally. I think this is a series dominated by home floor, and the Silvertips have the edge. What do you got here?
So I like some of the pieces the Mavs have added, and like Trey Christensen's such an X factor on the bench. Like, you know, that guy's one of the ultimate motivators in the league. I have to think the Silvertips win this 1 and 2 because they got bit in the ass last year. They got a taste of how much it sucks to lose out in the playoffs. Caden McDonough, you know, had to eat his crow last year, and I think that guys like that can learn from it and really come out guns a-blazing. So, like, I don't see the Silvertips thinking, like, hey, just because we got the bye, we're going to let off the gas here. I think they want to get it done in 2, and I think they will.
I like it. So, the Silvertips, for anybody that's unaware, are hosting. So, those 2 teams are already in the Larry Bishop. So, and I know I said this also on the previous section, but I think motivation will come into play here. It's hard to handicap that, but the Silvertips, I think you make a great point in what happened with them last year against Red Deer and unceremoniously going out in 2 straight games in a series they were heavily favored in. So I think that is also something that they're going to draw on, and we'll see what happens in what should be a very tight and I think low-scoring series. Now, I know this one is going to be the one you want to talk about most. The Warriors and Rebels. Warriors take the season series by winning 2 games and tying 1. So the Rebels didn't get a win against them this season. The series starts off Thursday night inside Moyer out in the country. What do you got here?
I got the Warriors in 3. We kind of talked about it, though. Like, home floor advantage helps, but I don't think it makes as big of a difference as it used to, Mo. I think that if this was in the JRC back in 2018-19, the place was freaking rocking, the horn was going, kids were going crazy, beers were flowing. I really think that the Warriors would then get a little distracted and have some issues. I'm not sure that your Rebels fans are going to bring that same effect inside Moyer. And so I think that with the Junior A guys that the Warriors got back with the addition of Fodchuk, I don't know. I think that the Warriors are the favorite. They should be the ones. You know, they were the better team in the second half of the season. So, but they also have all the pressure on, right? Like, just because the Rebels are the first does not mean they're the favorites in this series by any means. So I'll go Warriors in 3.
Yeah, I know. I know I mentioned that a lot too. Is the pressure? It's weird to say, but yeah, the 2 seed has the pressure on them. I don't think there's any question. And I think that the one advantage the Rebels will have is they can play loose because, you know, I don't think I mean, obviously they have a trip to the Larry Bishop and potentially the Founders on the line, so every team has something that is going to put pressure on them. But I don't think if you polled, I don't know, 20 people inside the league, I don't know if more than one of them would pick the Rebels. So I think in that sense, the pressure is on the Warriors, and they're a team that usually reacts to that pretty well. Like, I know it sounds bad, like, I'm not saying they're arrogant, but they have that air to them where they're nothing really bothers. It's a good thing in sports where nothing really gets to them. They're just sort of, you know, they know what they're about and what they want to try to accomplish, and the outside noise doesn't really impact them. So we'll see what happens. I think
health has to play into it too, though. Like, I've talked to a few Rebels guys and being there, you know, a few weeks ago, like, they're a banged up bunch. They are far from healthy. Yeah. You know, we saw the impact that Hunter Lukoweski could have. Like, when that guy dials it in, I mean, he's a crazy goalie. Like, we're all a little bit different in that regards. But when Hunter locked in last year, like, and previous times, like, the guy can steal games. Right? So, like, if you don't have that factor, like we saw Trey Stewart do it at the junior B level, I really think that, and it's not against Bowen Carpenter. Like, that's a young goalie. He's freaking good. Like, he's going to be a heck of a goaltender as well. But, like, if you're the Rebels and you're battling injuries, plus you're seeing the guys the Warriors are adding, like, it's not favorable for you. Let's put it that way.
No, and I know from talking to Darren that they are getting healthier and guys are coming back. I think, obviously, Reed Lowe is going to make a difference having him in the lineup. Eastwood's been in and out lately. They're hoping that maybe they get Manning back, although that I don't know how likely that is. But they definitely are getting healthier. I think that if you're the Warriors, you don't want to see McGilvery. I think he is a guy that in net can truly steal a game. Will it be enough? I don't know, but I like the pick because I totally thought you were gonna go. You were going to have your allegiances maybe sway you a little bit. But that's, you know, you surprised me a little bit. So Warriors in 3, interesting. So, like, we're going to conclude here with asking you, and, you know, we'll try to get you on during the provincials, but you may not get another chance to ask you this on air. So I want to conclude by asking, who represents Alberta at the 2024 Founders Cup out east and why?
Whoever wins the North. The Warriors or the Rebels. It's again, I think the Central was the best division competitive-wise this year, but we all know the best teams are coming from the North, and like, I think the Shamrocks are a heck of a team. I think in a one-game series, I'd still be taking the Warriors or the Rebels over them, especially at a neutral site game. So, you know, the Warriors are the heavy favorites. They should go back there. Like, they're the defending champs. They got their junior A guys back from the minors, who are one of the best, if not the best team in the league, like one of the best teams in the country. So, like, and plus you had a stud like Fodchuk. I mean, it's got to be them, but, like, hey, pressure's on. So I guess we'll see if they still got it.
There you go, folks. Cody Janzen steps up to the plate and delivers. Cody, thanks for the time.
Hey, no problem at all.
And that'll be a wrap. Thanks to Rebels head coach Darren Beret, Warriors head coach Vay Dieppe, and Rush play-by-play guy Cody Janzen for stopping by to give us their thoughts on what should be a great divisional final week. We will know by Monday night who is set to descend in on Airdrie during the August long weekend. Until then, take care and enjoy the games, everybody.